I was sent this question. Uh, the question was, which equation shows inverse variation? So I assume this is from the inverse variation skill. And you've got, what, 5 different equations to choose from. You're supposed to choose only one answer. Um, so the first thing to understand what inverse variation is, um, you can just understand the definition of it without kind of really feeling what it is. But the definition is just that it's any equation that can be written in this form, where k is just a constant. It doesn't have to be a whole number. It can just be, fraction or a negative number, anything like that. But essentially what happens is, right, it's not essentially, but the biggest thing to know about inverse variation is as your x gets bigger, your y gets smaller. Okay, you can have other equations like that aren't inverse variation, but one really important thing to know about inverse variation in inverse variation situations is as x gets bigger, y gets smaller. Okay, you can see that here. If you're just, case is some number, if you're dividing it up more and more, y is just going to end up being smaller and smaller. Okay, but probably the easiest way to go through these different equations and figure out whether it's inverse variation or not is just to try to put them in this form. Okay, and that involves getting the y alone on one side. So with the first of the answer options, x minus y equals 8, I just move the x over to the other side and then multiply through by -1. That does not get me an inverse variation equation. Okay. The second one, I'm going to convert the 1/8 to a decimal, and you can do that. I do that because people sometimes forget how to do the fraction rules, so it ends up being just a little easier. Sometimes they work with a decimal. They see the inverse variation better. So I'm just converting that to 0.125, the decimal equivalent, and I'm multiplying that times the fraction 1 over x, and I get 0.125 over x is equal to y. And so that is that form that we're looking for. So, we could stop now because we found the one answer, but I just want to show you the other ones also do not make inverse variation equations. So here I would just multiply both sides by 8, and I get y equals 8x. That's actually direct variation, the opposite of inverse variation. This one looks promising. I move the 8 over to the other side, and I get y is equal to a fraction, but the problem is the x is on the top, not the bottom where you need it to be. So we need x to be on the bottom and the number to be on the top. The last one, I just multiply those two fractions together. I get 1 over 8x is equal to 1 over y. That kind of is also promising because the x is in the right place. But notice the y isn't up in the numerator. It's down in the denominator. So if I was to get rid of fractions by just flipping both fractions over, I'd really wind up with 8x is equal to y, which is direct variation, not indirect variation. So I hope that helps on this skill and how to take care of those ones with a little equation manipulation. You should be able to find the one that works.